What we're seeing meeting planners doing very well in partnership with clients is saying, what do you need now? What will help you for tomorrow? As opposed to who's going to knock it out of the park on stage. My job is to do that every time, but I need them to be able to look back a year in the future and say that was the best decision we could have made because here's what happened in the months since then.
Hello and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is David Avrin. David is a customer experience expert, a best-selling author, and highly sought-after keynote speaker, where David helps audiences and organizations become ridiculously easy to do business. In our conversation, we cover the idea of how to remove friction in your business so that you best serve your customers and they have the optimal experience. It's a broad-ranging, rich, and fascinating conversation. We appreciate you joining us. You'll be smarter for it. Hello and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is David Avrin. David, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Seth. It's great to be here on the show.
It's great to have you here. We have a history that goes back, dare I say, to the early 90s, a through line, not just for myself, but my brother and my family in Denver, Colorado, where, I've been a resident of and you're a longtime resident of. So it's great to reconnect as always. What I like to do in the beginning, David, is, as our audience, the majority of them are event planners, conference planners, all sorts of meeting professionals, sure, whether it's event marketers. We know that you're a customer experience expert and there's a ton of accolades and you literally have traveled the globe for decades delivering your message. Your books have been bestsellers. But from your words, give us a sense, what's important to know about you for our audience and kind of where you're at right now?
Sure. It's funny you sort of talk about our background. It's been nice to watch both of our careers, from my perspective, and watch you as well. And as we've grown through the industry, but also as the industry has changed, I think following the big challenges, certainly 9/11 back in 2001 and the economic challenges before that, we've gone through a lot of shifts. And where we are today, I think, is the most profound and I think valuable place, which is recognizing that ROI is such an important element. There was a phase where the sort of stereotypical or quintessential motivational speaker sort of ruled the roost back in the maybe 70s or 80s. And it's not that they don't have a role, but I think we're seeing from organizations much more a demand for actionable takeaway, specific problems that people solve. And so it's been great for me because I'm a high content speaker. It's motivating, certainly. I think anytime we help somebody build their business. But the industry has gone through a lot of changes, and I think they're really positive changes. I think COVID played a part in that as well, in sort of the weeding out of the fluff. There's some really good people, but I have a really interesting profession as a professional speaker and a consultant, in that it's probably the only profession on earth where most people get into this profession because they are encouraged by somebody who has no idea what this profession is. Oh my God, that story about you losing a foot and climbing that mountain and overcoming that and the medal that you should be a speaker and you could inspire people. And my response my response is, I think you should feed your family. And people come to the profession, they leave because they starve. And those who really have great expertise and find a way to deliver it in a compelling way and help move the needle to the organization and actually solve problems as opposed to looking for a cathartic experience to impact people and their lives, I think those people are doing well today. And I'm fortunate to be one of them. You had mentioned that I have spoken in 26 countries around the world. I just got back from 11 days in Dubai. I leave for Barcelona and London on Tuesday, taking my daughter along. And I'm really fortunate to do what I do and what I should do. I help organizations future-proof their business engagement, understand their customers better, and become ridiculously easy to do business with. And so we do that in a variety of ways. But to short answer your question, I know it's probably too late. I think it's such an amazing industry right now. And for all of us who are in the event industry, from the planners through the logistics people, the keynote curators such as yourself, and the content deliverers such as myself, I think it's a great time because I think there's a need for content. I think there's a hunger for new outside perspective, and I'm proud to be part of the industry.
Yeah. I'm listening to you and you're just preaching to the preacher.
Of course.
There is a place for the highly purely motivational speaker, even today. It's not something to be discarded. But with that said, I think clients and buyers and event planners, conference planners, meeting professionals are looking for that balance. If there were two dials, it's that level to inspire, to motivate. I call it breathing life into the room with that content, and not just any content that's relevant, that's applicable, deployable, that can be used immediately and make a difference right away. What I found is, Dave, and this is not just inauthentic blowing smoke up, is that you've dialed in that right measure of blend on those two dials. And that's a little bit of a unique thing today. One of the things you touched on is that, whether it's the marketplace is commoditized by an influx of speakers,
right?
There's the flavor of the moment, whether it's sustainability, green to gold, how to deal with millennials, DE&I, AI, e-commerce, whatever it is, that's the mode of the moment. And buyers are more sophisticated and they have an appetite and a demand for more. So it's not just enough to breathe life into the room. You mentioned the phrase, you took the words right out of my mouth, because when I do speak about you to my clients, here's a gentleman who's going to talk about taking the friction away and making it ridiculously easy to do business with you. And one of the phrases I love is, David Avrin says, things have changed. The marketplace has changed. And this is good. Change is good. Change is growth. It might be uncomfortable. Even the way people complain has changed.
Yeah. But I think,
riff on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, let me go back to your point. I think you're right about the formula. And there's people, and certainly some of the motivational speakers, certainly the celebrity level motivational speakers as well. The ones who are being booked have mastered that balance, which is playing off that level of celebrity, which creates interest, which drives traffic and registrations to the events. Very, very important. But there's some great ones out there, even on the celebrity level, who are delivering great content. I'm one of those people, don't consider myself a celebrity speaker, but I'm very fortunate that I've had great longevity. And that longevity comes from continually refreshing the content, tapping into the newest research, making sure that what you do is current, it's applicable, it's relevant. To play off the point you made, that one of the things I talk about how everything has changed, certainly how we complain has changed. When I talk about customer experience, I don't talk about customer service, to be clear, because I think we've been talking about that for 40, 50 years. I think we know how to be nice to people, but the experience is a little bit different. It's what we experience as customers and clients. And I work with organizations when I keynote for conferences as well. I help them understand this is why this is more important than ever, because of social proof. We all grew up in business, understanding what we all knew as guest relations philosophy, right? Everybody's heard it before. Here's how it goes, right? The average person with a positive experience tells 2 or 3 people. Somebody with a negative experience tells 10, right? The reality is none of that's true anymore. Today, we tell thousands. Today, we tell millions. Today, the ramifications of underperformance are profound because everybody has a bullhorn that reaches around the world. And so how we used to complain, we were hoping somebody would respond. Now, if organizations make it difficult to complain, if it make it difficult to reach somebody and resolve an issue, people go online and they share it forever. Right. And the internet is forever. It never goes away. And so I think there's not only a great opportunity, but a phenomenal responsibility of organizations to be very intentional about their behavior, about how their customers and clients perceive doing business with them. That's the essence of customer experience, right? Are you frustrating? Is it maddening? Is it intuitive? And we have such wonderful examples from organizations and companies that do it well. Others are scrambling to catch up. But I think there's such a need for some of that external perspective. How are other industries dealing with these particular challenges and problems? So on a strategic level, organizational leaders can make better decisions and get out of sort of that echo chamber of their own individual industry. Yeah. Which is why it's so great that events are back, that people need to meet face to face, the serendipity of the unexpected conversation in the hallways. Yeah. And so I think coming out of the pandemic, I think it's a phenomenal time for organizations to retool, to take stock of what's changed and have stronger information, research and otherwise, to move forward in a very intentional and effective way. I think of customer experience, you hear these phrases and they're cliche, or you get saturated and overabsorbed by all of these ideas about customer experience.
And, meeting professionals that are focused on the customer experience, or said a better way, their attendee experience, are the ones that are going to differentiate themselves. But David, you and I know, you hear it all the time. How do you differentiate yourself? Oh, we're going to wow them, or we're going to have them wanting more. These are words right out of your mouth. Oh, really? Yeah. You and everybody else.
Right. But expectations, and this is what you do every day, Seth. Expectations of audience members, whether it's organizationally, whether it's through associations or individual company, the expectations are give us value. Don't waste our time. Sometimes the value is just having that high level celebrity, somebody to be able to hear the wisdom. Great. There's a great role for that. But most conferences aren't one presentation, right? It's multiple speakers, oftentimes multiple days. And they will evaluate that in its entirety. For organizations who are looking for people to register for their conference, the following year, they look back and say, did I receive value? Did it move the needle? What happened during that previous 12 months that makes this an absolute event? On the corporate side, it's if we're going to take time away from the office, if we're going to pull people off the line, pull people off the road, it's got to be of great value. But of course, there's also that ebb and a flow, and there's the humor part of it. There's the content part. There is the facilitated panel discussion. As long as the people walk away saying, that was phenomenal, that was worth my time, I learned something, I have something to apply, this is what's in the minds of the audiences. And of course, meeting planners have that challenge. How do we curate, as you do with the keynotes, how do we curate an itinerary that checks all the boxes, that helps us do what we need to do and accomplishes our goal, not just for the event, but for the organization? What's next? As a result of this, we're going to be doing X or Y. And so the meeting professionals I'm working with are all having that conversation. And it's much more 10 years ago, it's let's have celebrity impersonators. Oh, look, that person sort of looks like Burt Reynolds. And look, there's a Marilyn Monroe-esque type, and let's get our face painted.
And let's throw in Charo while we're at it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, look, that mime's in an invisible box. It's not good enough anymore. It is. Right. It doesn't mean that we don't have great, entertaining, interactive. People want more time to interact with each other, right? I'm at events every week, of course, across America and around the world. And so I get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And most of it is very good. There's very little ugly because the meeting professionals take the time to vet. They work with yourself, a keynote curator. I think the name of your organization is ideal, because it's not that we have a roster, it's that you're helping organizations, meeting planners and others, curate the right speakers for the right segments and slots and the right audience on the right days. And I think for everybody in this industry, and I think most are doing it very well, that part is essential. It's not just who's a good speaker, a lot of good speakers. My competitors are my colleagues and my friends, and they're all good. And I'm very fortunate. The reason that I'm fortunate to be able to work as much as I do is because I keep current, because I make sure that what I do and my due diligence and my research and the people I talk to and the committees that I work with prior to an event help me be well prepared. And the best compliment I ever get, and I'm fortunate to get it often, is when people come up afterwards and they go, it sounds like you work in our industry.
Yeah.
And that's my job.
Right. And I know you do the work, you do the pre-work.
You have to.
All speakers do that. But that art, and if you will, for me, it is an art. How do you tailor, not how do you take that information, whether it's interviews, whether it's, a couple of calls, a little follow-up here and there, some research, which is always dabbled in. I know you get there early. You like to sit in on sessions. What's really important is what meeting professionals at the end of the day want with the keynote speaker. And as a meeting professional, the idea that your keynote speaker's presentation is going to forward the business initiatives and forward your organization's messaging and ideas and what you're grappling with in the industry in a way that the attendees can take it immediately, apply it, and have it make a difference. And that's really what we need to have our focus on. And that's what curating the speaker is all about.
I think it's exactly right. And once again, I think most do that well, but also the good meeting planner, bureau partners and others work hand in hand with the client. There's no shortage of those that will basically say, hey, do you represent so-and-so? Absolutely. And they'll work out the logistics. The good organizations, and most of them are really helping them say, what's your goal for this? Here's multiple choices. here's what they do from an interactive perspective. You talk about sort of the flavor of the month. Right now, it's important for some of those flavors of the month, right? I've got some
Sure.
wonderful colleagues. If they're talking about super creativity and artificial intelligence, that's needed. Even for those who aren't necessarily very, very, very timely in terms of something that's really big in the news right now, the obligation from a speaker perspective is to remain timely, to
Yeah,
remain relevant. The presentation that I give today is not the same presentation I did pre-pandemic. It's
that's
not the
right.
same presentation I did 2 years before that, because we're learning all the time. And as a curator, is who's on top of the latest information, who has conducted the most current, relevant, applicable, actionable research that will help that organization. You
Yeah.
can go to any site and find speakers ever, and there's very talented people. What we're seeing meeting planners doing very well in partnership with clients is saying, what do you need now? What will help you for tomorrow? As opposed to who's going to knock it out of the park on stage.
That's
My
right.
job is to do that every time, but I need them to be able to look back a year in the future and say that was the best decision we could have made, because here's what happened in the months since then.
That's right. And I'm in a position where, I work with my clients and I'll present, several speakers, or we'll reduce it down to a short list.
Right.
And the through line, or the common thread, David, is making the case and creating the context or the framework as to why David Avrin is a fit is important from the outset, even before we go to contract. Because when we go to contract and then we have the pre-event call and you do your research and all your preparation, that is the seed that harvests your context and your framework, and that you can build on. Because here's the thing, there are a lot of great speakers, as you said, out there. And
Absolutely.
Many of them are not only great, but their messages are timeless. But how do you make it timely?
Right.
And that's the art. That's the threading the needle.
Well, some of the subject matters, the broader subjects are timeless, in that people are going to go to the site and they're going to look up diversity and inclusion. They're going to look up leadership, sales, customer experience, all the above. But even within those categories, staying current is absolutely crucial. I think your service, in that you're not just finding the right speaker, you're finding multiple right speakers that can help them accomplish different things. And they always ultimately have the choice, which I think is really important. It's like my kids, we both were talking earlier about our kids. My kids are all in their 20s, no longer kids, but as they navigate their romantic relationships and they talk about finding somebody or their soulmate, or there's this one perfect person. No, there's wonderful people out there, multiple perfect people who are
Right.
perfect in different ways. And I think it's the same thing in curating those right keynoters. There are multiple people that would do well within that slot. Your job is to help source all of those great talents, to do the due diligence behind the scenes, so that by the time, Seth, you're presenting those options to them, they're already vetted, they're already curated, and then in partnership, they can make the decision. And I always appreciate being one of the final choices, but I always accept the fact if I'm not that choice because someone else was a better fit for their current situation and their current needs at that time. And I'm fortunate, I have full staff here in my office as well. And there was one last week, and this keynote that we thought we were going to get, and went to somebody else, a good friend and colleague. And I told the client, you made a great choice.
Right.
And they said, don't worry. And my assistant was disappointed. And she says, don't worry. She said, they said they're going to hire you next year. I said, that's great. I have to feed my family next year too.
Right.
I play the long game. I'm very
Yes.
fortunate that quarter century. I've had a career that's had some great longevity, and I play the long game. I'm
Yeah,
there if I'm the right fit, and I'm not always the right fit.
That's right. And the generosity of spirit, they might want you, you're not available, and the next best person based on your conversations with them, what would fit, and you pay it forward or you pass it along,
Always.
which is the long game. And that's why, we have such a strong relationship. I'm going to throw out just some general thoughts and ideas, and I'd love to get your take on it.
Sure.
I read or heard almost 1 million companies a year go out of business. And it's not necessarily due to the competition, but it's somewhere where they failed in their customer experience. Which companies for you are doing a stellar job at being customer-centric and solidifying their place in the market?
Yeah, I think going back to your point, and we'll answer them quickly so you can have multiple questions here, is
Sure.
that there's no shortage of companies, entrepreneurs, and others who think they've created the cure for cancer that tastes like chocolate. And there's great companies that go out of business all the time, but they have to be able to take a step back and look at their business, not just the products and services, but their engagement model from an outside perspective. Are they frustrating to do business with? Are there things that other organizations make readily available that they do not, right? We're seeing companies great with their customer service. They're very, very friendly, but it's frustrating to figure out how to navigate, or you can't reach a real person, or there's very few payment methodologies that they take. We have to really broaden our horizons, look at what we're calling today omni-channel. And omni-channel is no matter how somebody wants to do business with you, let them, however they want to communicate with you, however they want to pay you, make that available. The challenges that organizations have is they're looking at one particular demographic, and most of us serve everything from 75, 80-year-olds down to teenagers and early 20s. They all want to do business differently. So once these businesses have their product and service down and they're excellent at what they do, they have to really turn their attention to how are people going to learn about them, communicate with them, customize, pay, deliver, follow up. It's not just about quality. At the end of the day, it's not about quality, friends.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about competitive advantage. At the beginning of the day, it's about quality. Quality is the entry fee. But at the end of the day, it's about being ridiculously easy to do business with.
And that, in a nutshell, that core virtue there, that competitive advantage, that's the differentiator for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's what I work with organizations all the time. Now, that said, you have to be good at what you do. You have to be great. You can't have great, clever messaging to mask deficiencies in your operations.
Sure.
The organizations that I present for, that I work for in a consulting capacity, the criteria for the work that I accept, they have to be great at what they do. That's the foundation. I can't mask any of that. I help them understand how to take that greatness and become not just competent, but become preferable for their ideal audience.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. Omni-channel, which was so prevalent in retail, Nordstrom's, Macy's, Target. Sure. I have clients that they only want to use their paperwork on a contract. I have other clients that want to pay through ACH. I have other clients that, need more than one call with the speaker. There's so many variables. On the one hand, you're going to find, as a meeting planner, how you work and operate is what determines the relationship with, us, the keynote curators, or really any keynote speaker. We have the flexibility. We have the willingness and the appetite to meet you where you're at and adapt. Because at the end of the day, whether you need to use your paperwork for a contract or my paperwork for a contract, that's not the end goal. The end goal is that we get a great keynote presentation that once again is going to forward your business initiatives, your organization's objectives, that can make a difference immediately and long lasting. So, I hear you on the omni-channel. I have another thought / question.
Sure.
And again, I've heard this in your presentations. So, we're with you. I want to talk about your presentations, and it's a bit of a sarcastic kind of joke. You're like, what's your competitive advantage? And you're like, we're going to listen. And you're like, we listen better. And everybody's like, you're like, oh, really? Our competitive vision, we don't. And we're going to make it really difficult. Everybody's trying to listen better.
Here's right? The challenge is that most organizations are still what we call product centric, which means we're really good at what we do and we sell it to as many people as possible, right? That creates market share. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is when everybody's good, we use the same language. We talk about quality and commitment and caring and trust in people.
Right.
Here's what the research shows. All those things are important, but that's table stakes. I mean, that's just being good at what you do. It's not about our quality and commitment and caring and trust in people. That's expected. That's demanded. But the opportunity and the research shows that today, customers are prioritizing speed and flexibility and accommodation and convenience. A colleague came out with a great study the other day that had, I'll give him credit as well. Shep Hyken had a great study, and it came out and said that 63% of people reported that they prefer a convenient experience over a friendly experience. Isn't that interesting? It's not that friendly is unimportant. It's very important, but don't use friendly to mask deficiencies.
That's right.
I talk to customer service people and like, I understand, Mr. Avrin, how frustrating. I was like, don't read the script. I just need to, what? And then they get confused. Well, yes, Mr. Avrin, I understand. No, don't read the script.
Right.
Just help me solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so for organizations and leaders to kind of walk that journey and ask, could that be expedited? Could that be simplified? We're seeing contracts. You might be seeing this as well. People are cutting their contracts in half.
Yeah.
Industries certainly have compliance issues, but anything we can do to simplify and help people get what they want faster, more conveniently, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I chuckle because, we're all dealing with customer experience all the time.
Sure.
Flights, cars, hotels, restaurants, you have a community association, even public service. There's all sorts of, and when there is a friction point or a breakdown, if you will, and the immediate thing is apologize, it's lovely and it's nice. You apologize and you're even understanding, but that's not, and this might sound like a jerk, that's not getting me anywhere right now in this specific
Absolutely.
moment. So while you're thorough and professional and kind, how can we resolve this? You don't need to say you're sorry anymore.
Yeah. But here's the thing for us, listen, you and I, and all the meeting professionals who are watching and listening right now, we're being evaluated as well. And my job is to model everything I talk about. I am ridiculously easy to do business with. Somebody wants an extra call with other members of their team? The answer is yes. You want me to show up the night before, which I always do anyway, for the cocktail reception or something to interact with the attendees? The answer is yes. I mean, the answer is always yes. No matter what's going to make it easier for them, they want to do a contract certain way, if they want to pay me on Zelle or PayPal or Square, or yes. If they want to barter with bushels of corn, we'll talk about it. But other than that,
we'll find a way. Maybe ethanol.
Yeah, but I actually do a lot of work with the meetings industry as well. I've spoken for the speaker associations in 9 different countries around the world, 3 of them twice. And I deliver the same message. We're all in business. None of us can afford to be difficult to do business with. So when I work with clients, when I work with you as my keynote curator, the answer is always yes. The client would like to have an extra conversation here. Yeah. Could you also facilitate their lunchtime panel discussion? I would love to. My assistant in my office is so funny when we're talking to clients and they're saying, well, what about this extra? Like, you don't understand. He loves this. You're just paying for him to leave his family.
Right.
So, right.
Exactly.
So we have to model that as well.
Yeah. Staying on this through line of customer experience, I can't help but bring up in this current moment, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. Sure. It's not a new technology, David. You know this.
Right.
Artificial intelligence has been around. Algorithms that get smarter and smarter and intuitive and self-generating ideas. Connect that to, the customer experience. There's chat bots, there's service bots. You get on a website, or there's voice recognition on a phone call. And where does that lie? Because again, with omni-channel as well, everybody wants to engage differently.
Right. Here's the thing. I don't expect that I can get my hair cut at 4 a.m, but I expect that I can make an appointment to do so. Chatbots, ChatGPT, voice recognition, all of them play a role. As long as it is a role and not the de facto mechanism for communicating with your customers and clients. When you look at new technologies and you use that as an excuse to eliminate the more convenient methodologies for communicating, you're doing it wrong. There's a term in the industry, and the term is the off-ramp. Give people an off-ramp to a real person. Labor issues are real. I understand what organizations are struggling with. Needing to be available 24/7, being able to offer text options, chat options, email, voice support, all of the above.
Smoke signal, carrier pigeon.
The reality is all of the above is what's important. It's when, and I do little bits on this on stage. By the way, I'm really funny. It's very entertaining. I don't call myself a motivational speaker, but I use that strategically to temper a pretty tough message about what it takes to compete and win today. And the reality is when somebody's on the phone going, real person, I think you said, no, real person, right? It's funny and ridiculous because it's pervasive, right? When we see organizations taking away options and adding friction, and I'll call out a company a few months ago, there was a press release went out from Frontier Airlines that they will no longer offer voice support in their customer service. It's not even an option. You can't even pay for it. Wow. And their statement was, we found that our customers prefer digital options. Think about your travelers who are in their 60s or 70s or 80s, and they're on their way to see their grandkids, and their flight gets gee, what could possibly go wrong?
Right.
And so I fundamentally disagree with organizations that are using these new technologies, as you suggest, as an excuse to create more distance. It's the wrong way to do it. It's another tool. I'm not a big fan of chatbots. I understand them. I know it's inevitable. I'm one of the people that would rather talk to a real person, but my kids who are in their 20s absolutely want to do the digital options. We've got to be able to provide both. So once again, back to your point, all of these new advancements I think are phenomenal as long as you use them to enhance the ways that people can communicate and not as an excuse to take them away.
Yeah, I mean, I found that they've provided an opportunity, the possibility is to be more efficient in certain areas that
Sure.
each organization's unique, or optimize certain areas and free up either creativity or add on and added value of service. But it's not the answer. It's not the magic bullet. And, I know you travel enough where you have status on probably at least one or several airlines.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that way.
Yeah, I still prefer, as much as I travel, to talk to somebody. I do a lot of the booking just through the website, but there are some certain moments where I'm going to Europe or I have a connection or certain kind of things. And, the chatbot just ain't going to cut it.
Well, because the ramifications of screwing it up are profound.
Right.
When I'm doing multiple, next week I'm going Denver, Newark, Barcelona, London. I talk to a real person because I don't want to screw this up, because there are people who've invested in me, who are waiting for me to show up, and that's their insurance policy, right? That I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to be there. And I'm fortunate in almost 25 years, 24 years, I've never missed a scheduled presentation ever. Six times I've driven all night in a flight, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Because this feeds my family, and that investment, there's an audience full of people there waiting, and I will never not deliver.
That's right. David, I want to know what it is right now that you're working on that excites you most.
What I'm working on right now, sort of behind the scenes, my book, Why Customers Leave and How to Win Them Back. We're in 6 languages around the world, has done very well, but I wrote it 3 years ago. So I'm actually in the process of coming out with a second edition that updates everything post-pandemic, and that reflects, just as my content on stage, it reflects the current situation, so that there's actionable content. So I'm fortunate that international travel has opened up in a significant way. We're new empty nesters in our house, 5 kids grown and gone. Doesn't mean they're off the payroll, but at least they're out of the house. So
it's a step in the right direction.
I'm telling you, it actually frees me up to not only travel more and accept more opportunities, but to schedule an extra day or two and really enjoy the sites, the cities, the cultures. I always sort of made sure I satisfied the client, did everything right. And then I got home to take my kids to their sports practice and everything else. And I'm looking forward in this third act to do the best work of my career, but to really enjoy the locations and connect with friends while on the road.
Yeah, that's great. And the exercise of doing a second edition and revisiting it is no different than modernizing or bringing up to date your timeless messages.
Absolutely.
That exercise, it's almost a structure to keep you fresh, right? With your own stuff.
It's crucial. And I never want to criticize colleagues, but I'll hear things, that presentations that could have been presented 6-7 years ago. And I think it just does a disservice. And most of my colleagues do exactly this. You're always looking for what's the newest research. Our job is to read news every day, to look at new studies, and to continually update our content to make it relevant. So whatever date, I'll talk to organizations, and I'm scheduled for a keynote months in advance, and they ask for my presentation. I said, recognize that I'm going to update it up until, a week before, to make sure that what they're receiving that day reflects the absolute latest wisdom, case studies, and examples, to make that as relevant as can be. So oftentimes when I'm working with you or doing the things with my team and we're scheduling with clients, what we talk about changes in the 8 months from when we booked it.
Right.
But that's what we also do, and you know this as well, is we have conversations with the clients in the weeks before to make sure that nothing has changed for them.
That's right.
Are there any new challenges in their industry, new acquisitions or changes in the dynamics, so that our presentation can bolster the points that they're trying to make that reflect the current situation. And it's an ongoing process.
Has the mood changed, like you said, or the mergers, is there regulatory challenges that are new since the booking happened? I'm listening to you, and you've said it a couple of times, but it's just sinking in deeper. You're doing research, you're staying up to date. It's no different than the curation process, whether it's The Economist, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. I read ag news, I read energy news, what's going on in higher education. And it's not, oh, look at me, how informed I am. It's a way for me to serve my clients and to know what emergency room nurses are grappling with, or bond lawyers, or road builders, or drilling and blasting professionals. Because the more informed I am, that information is universal and applies across the board. And it's just to kind of bring it full circle. That's part of the customer experience too.
Right. Well, it's the difference between being a repository for speaker profiles or sourcing speakers and curating speakers. That's why I love the name of your business, because I think just as other meeting professionals would literally curate all the elements from the AV and the entertainment and the venue, we have to curate the keynote as well. The sources are everywhere, but to have somebody who's knowledgeable behind the scenes partnering to bring forward the most relevant, current, applicable speakers, I think is really important as well.
Well, thank you, David. We share the same virtue there.
Brothers from a different mother. And
that's right. That's right. Pretty much. We're coming to the point where we're going to get into our 20 questions. So I'm just announcing that to get you ready for that. Are you ready?
I am ready. I thought we were already doing that, but these ones are faster, right?
These ones are faster.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll be less
you ready?
long-winded. You know what I do for a living. Yes, sir. Go.
Yes, I do know what you do. What is something that we wouldn't know about you by reading your resume or your bio?
I used to sing in an a cappella doo-wop group called the Diners. So if you've seen the movie Pitch Perfect, that's what I did, but we did it professionally. I was PR director at Children's Hospital in Denver by day, and by night, we sang a cappella at the local clubs. We had CDs. We opened for Ray Charles. And not only did I have a mullet, I had a permed mullet. That's how 80s I was.
Well,
Next
go to
question.
Argentina. That's where all the mullets have retired.
Okay, got it.
What are you most grateful for in life?
I'm most grateful that my grown children are friends with each other. There is such a beautiful satisfaction of watching these amazing kids who beat on each other growing up. It is the longest relationship they will ever have in their lives. And I so love the fact that they love each other and that they communicate with each other. As a dad, that's really gratifying for me.
Beautiful. What's one thing that can instantly make your day better?
Jeopardy. I know it's the oddest answer. At the end of every day, regardless of how the day went, I clear my head and I end with a victory because I watch Jeopardy every day and I'm obsessed. And that's just that one thing that reboots me every day. It's a funny answer, but it's true.
A great contestant. It might be funny, but to me, it's not surprising.
Yeah. I turn off the world. I focus on getting that win, and then I can relax for the evening.
Right. What's the career highlight you're most proud of?
For a speaker, Carnegie Hall is being on the main stage of the $1 Million Roundtable. And so I'm fortunate that I've been invited twice to perform on the main stage, 10,000 insurance professionals in Toronto and also in Bangkok, Thailand. So professionally, that's probably the most public one. I think behind the scenes, there is something really visceral when you get a box delivered to your front doorstep and it's your new book and you put months and months of blood, sweat, and tears and hours. And then you open it up and you hold this thing in your hand and you're like, I did this. I wrote a book. And of course, now I've written 5, but it's a tangible reminder of the value that you've put into the world that will outlive you. And so that I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the books that I have written and published.
What's the last book you've read?
Last book I read, Roger Dooley wrote a book called Friction, which is sort of my subject as well. It helps me stay current, a lot of great research in that, but it was really good. And I'll never look at the world the same again. I think I come to realize how many more things are frustrating, which my wife says, oh, that's the last thing you need is things to be curmudgeonly about. But that was the most recent book, Friction by Roger Dooley. Recommended. Good book.
What's a country you haven't presented in yet, but you would like to?
Yeah, you know what? I've never been to China, which is interesting because I've spoken to 26 countries around the world. I've spoken all across the Middle East, Asia Pacific. And for some reason, well, I guess the reason is pretty clear. I haven't been hired yet, but I would love to present on mainland China. I have been all around the region, many times in Singapore and all through India and Philippines and everywhere else. But that's on the bucket list, hopefully in the next year or two.
I know that your luggage has been lost 13 times over the course of traveling all over the world. What airline for you provides the best customer experience?
Well, I'm a Denver guy. So I fly out of Denver, which is great because I can get almost anywhere in the world with one connection. And so I'm United. I'm close to 2 million miles. And as you said, travel is difficult regardless. I love where I go. Going there and coming back is a challenge. But it's kind of nice to have status. And if there's a challenge, I've got a direct number that I can call and I don't have to stand in line. Right. I know that sounds so elitist, but
no, but you know what? It's in service of what you do. Have you made it to global? Have you made it to global services yet?
No, you know what? There is no specific criteria, but
Yeah.
right here behind the scenes are people who buy last minute tickets for $10,000, and I
Yeah.
don't. My clients generally book me 8 to 10 months in advance. So I'm
Yeah.
never buying the most expensive ticket. I don't
Right.
require first class for my clients. I'm not one of their elite, but I think I am
Yeah.
definitely preferred.
You're up there. Last one.
Yes.
Do you live by any words of wisdom?
I do. And I'll give you really quickly the background on this. I was in a workshop and somebody was helping people create their life mission statement. And I'm a little bit cynical and I was sort of rolling my eyes like, ugh, I don't want to like do this.
Right.
But what came out of that was something very profound. And I have it on the wall next to my desk here. And it says very simply, I want to spend my life doing things that matter with people who care. And that's my criteria as I embark on my third act post kids is I want to do important things, but I want to do with people who are also aligned with wanting to do important things. It doesn't mean the other things are unimportant. It's just not worth my time. The things that I volunteer my time and my talent and my treasure generally have to do with kids. The work that I do with clients, there are occasionally clients that I just philosophically don't feel comfortable working with. It doesn't happen very often, but if it does, I'm fortunate to have the freedom to turn down the work that doesn't align with where I am. But it's a pretty broad view of just being good people. And so there's my thing. I want to spend my life doing things that matter with people who care.
That's beautiful. And that's a great idea to finish our conversation with. I feel like we always leave a little bit on the table on purpose to come back and revisit. Maybe when your second edition comes out and we can hear how things went in Barcelona and London and all the other places that you'll be going to. And we can fast forward the conversation of how AI and technologies are enhancing and impacting, this whole idea of customer experience.
Absolutely.
But David, I just want to thank you. It was great conversation, really rich from my perspective, your generosity, your willingness to share on a range of topics and just be an open book for not only meeting professionals, but even other keynote speakers to get a sense of, how you operate, how you prepare, where you put your focus on, why you've been so successful for the last 25 years doing it, and hopefully many, many more. So just thank you.
And back at you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.